New York Jets stunned the football world by firing Brian Heimerdinger and naming head coach Adam Gase, who Maccagnan just hired, to be the interim GM. Here's the Jets CEO Christopher Johnson on the timing.
It was only through going through this particular off-season deeply that I understood how this organization was lacking in certain ways. There's no great time to make this decision, but I think that by diving deep in the organization, I had a better idea of what was wrong and where I wanted to head. We're trying to win football games, and I just felt we had to have a new GM to help us do that.
All right, there's obviously a lot to unpack here. Before we do, I just want everyone to hear what Adam Gase said just a few days ago. Today is May 16th. So take a look as we play you this soundbite from Adam Gase, the head coach and now assistant or interim general manager of the Jets. Take a look at the date. We'll show you when it was that he said this.
Unless I say it, it's really irrelevant to me. I don't know who decides that gets to put that stuff out there. It kind of pisses me off a little bit because we have discussions on everything, and that's our job. We have to work through so much stuff, and that's what we got to do. And that's all we've done since we've been here. Since we started, we just constantly were in communication, whether he's coming down to my office or I'm going to his office. That's all we're trying to do, is just trying to make sure that we're on the same page all the time and making sure that we're trying to put this thing together as well as we can in a shorter period of time.
All right, so if you're keeping score at home, that was 6 days ago. He was angry that people were suggesting his relationship with Maccagnan wasn't good. Meanwhile, amidst reports yesterday that part of the friction between the two was over the amount of money that they eventually paid Le'Veon Bell in free agency, Le'Veon goes on Twitter and says, "There's been a bunch of false reports and speculation about me in the past about things I've said and done, so I'm used to this. I don't jump to conclusions when I hear or see a story that may affect me. Even if reports are true, that won't stop me from doing what I came here to do. Everyone has a job to do, and I'm going to do mine whether people like me or not. I'm here to win football games." So let's start to unpack this with our ESPN NFL analyst, Louis Riddick. Louis, there's so much going on here, the timing, the reports of the disagreements over Bell and everything else. What in your mind is the biggest concern?
Well, the biggest concern is, number one, ownership said that he had to do a deep dive into this organization to really figure out what was going on. Well, didn't you do a deep dive into your organization at the end of the season when you decided to fire head coach Todd Bowles and keep Mike Maccagnan and have Mike Maccagnan be a part of the new head coach search process, and then, in prior months, praise Mike for the work that he is doing, only to turn around and do another deep dive and now say, well, I'm in the business of winning football games, so I decided to fire the head coach and fire the GM and keep the head coach who hasn't done anything for me yet, who hasn't done anything as far as being a head coach really in his career anyway. So really what this sounds like is just, another case of the Jets just kind of spinning their wheels and kind of acting like a rudderless ship. And it's unfortunate. Look, when you really get specific about it, what kind of questions were they asking Adam? What kind of conversations were they having about philosophical beliefs as far as how you select players, how you value players, how you build a football team during the head coach interview process? Because to me, it sounds like they were caught off guard by how different they were philosophically as they went through free agency, obviously with all the stuff surrounding Le'Veon Bell, and then on forward. Look, Adam didn't look very happy when they asked him those questions about possible discord between him and Mike. I mean, he sounded pained and like he was suffering, talking about the fact that they had to work through disputes and work through, trying to figure out what was the best way to build this football team. It shouldn't be like that when you're only 3-4 months into the job. I mean, everything's supposed to be happy right now. You're not even playing a game. You're just trying to build the team. Everybody's winning in the offseason. Everybody's a genius in the offseason. So this just sounds like, quite honestly, Greeny, this was just messed up right from the get-go. And you have to really take this backwards and put this at the feet of ownership, because they seem like they really didn't know how to assess their franchise, and they were faulty in the way that they did assess it when they actually got down to the fact of assessing it. So, look, Chris Johnson is the one who really I would be directing most of my questions towards.
Yes, I completely agree with that. That's really well said. Louis Riddick, thank you very much for jumping in here with your perspective. We'll check with you again soon. I want to take it to Dan because, Louis can speak, actually could speak as a former player as well, but he speaks sort of from the position of someone who has been in these offices. How about a player? If you're a player on that team, Le'Veon Bell gets thrown in the middle of this and he has to respond, but I'm thinking of a different player. I'm thinking of the most important player the franchise has had in a really long time, and that's the quarterback, Sam Darnold. What do you think he's thinking?
Well, initially you go, I just heard my head coach 5 days ago from that move go, this isn't anything, you're making too big a deal of it, and then the move gets made. So automatically I go, is he a liar? Is my head coach a liar? It's different handling media and whatnot, but you have blatantly went out and made lying statements, bold statements, and now as Sam Darnold, I'm going, man, can I trust what my head coach is saying? And the second thing is this, you've narrowed your general manager pool because of the timing of this move, because you have to get a guy who's good at evaluating players. You have to get a guy who's willing and want to work with Adam Gase. You have to get a guy who loves Sam Darnold. You have to get a guy who loves Le'Veon Bell at his contract, loves C.J. Mosley at his contract, wanted to draft Quinnen Williams. It can't just be, oh, well, I love Sam Darnold, but I really don't like Le'Veon Bell. Because then that might take a good general manager candidate out of the pool. But as a player, your biggest concern is, man, I don't know if I could trust my head coach and what he tells me.
I will say this, too, that Adam Gase is putting himself very much behind the 8 ball with the dreaded New York media, because if you're going to get up there and chastise the people who cover your team, the people who are going to shape the narrative around your team from a public perspective, 5 days before this change gets made, he didn't say this is untrue. You're right. There were ways to walk around that thing by getting up there. I'm going to use his words now. Excuse me. It's not a word I would normally use, but by saying I'm pissed that people are saying this stuff, and then 5 days later it comes out that they were 100% right in the first place. You make yourself look bad and you put yourself behind the 8 ball with the media, which is a terrible way to get this thing started.
It's funny because I actually wrote it in my notes when the hire was made. You asked me what I thought of it, and I was like, I actually think that this could work out and whatnot. And your initial reaction was, he better handle it early. He better handle it well, or the media will crush him.
Yeah, well,
so this is not
people's reputations precede them, and that is what it is. Look, at the end of the day, speaking primarily as a fan of the team, I just want them to win, and that's all that matters to me. But I've said a million times, more young quarterbacks in the National Football League are ruined than developed, and that's my biggest concern here, is how this ultimately affects Darnold, who hasn't even gone to his second training camp as an NFL quarterback yet, and has gone through all of this upheaval. 13
months in. He's in the NFL as a member of the NFL. Sam Darnold, 13 months in, he's had now 2 head coaches, 2 offensive coordinators, 2 general managers, and 2 cultures. There is not another quarterback in the NFL that has been good over the last decade that has had that much turnover in their first year.
And I will say, Sam Darnold is an unflappable player, but still, that's difficult to deal with. Something that stuck out to me, some sneaky big news as we go along here. Adam Gase wasted no time in getting to work as the interim GM, making his first trade last night, sending linebacker Darren Lee to the Chiefs for a 2026 round pick. You can hear by my tone, I'm frustrated by this. Lee was a first-round selection of Maccagnan's in 2016. He was suspended for the final 4 games last season for violating the league's substance abuse policy, and he further fell out of favor in New York when Maccagnan signed C.J. Mosley this offseason. But I was with the Jets last year at the beginning of the season. I did their Monday Night Football game to open the season, Darnold's first start, and you could tell that Darren Lee was one of the players that was the heartbeat of that team. So say what you want about everything that went down there. He was a guy that had a better 2017 than he did in 2018, but he was still somebody in the locker room that you want to keep around. And you do wonder about the other players, other than Le'Veon Bell, who know Lee and who have spent time with him, how they feel about this.
It should also be said that it is further evidence that Mike Maccagnan did an absolutely terrible job. That is the same draft. The first-round pick in 2016, they just traded for a 6th-round pick. His second-round pick that year, he traded up to take Christian Hackenberg, who when last seen was getting cut from a league that no longer exists. So he couldn't play quarterback at all. So Maccagnan deserved to go, but the timing and the circumstances beyond bizarre. All right, let's return to something much, much better, and that is golf, where the year's second major is now underway out on Long Island at Bethpage. Tiger Woods will tee off in less than 10 minutes, playing with Brooks Koepka and Francesco Molinari, and let's face it, after his win at the Masters, confidence is high. Ask 10 different people. They'll give you 10 different answers on their level of confidence for Tiger Woods heading into this major championship. As for me, put me right at the top.
Feel rested and ready, and that's going to be the interesting part going forward. How much do I play and how much do I rest?
Yes, it's true. Tiger hasn't played any competitive golf since the Masters. We don't know how much time he's been able to practice. And it's true that Bethpage is basically a U.S. Open course that just happens to be hosting the PGA. And the U.S. Open was the only major where Tiger missed the cut a year ago. Those are valid concerns. But here's why I believe. Despite carrying an 11-year-old weight on his back, Tiger had a cumulative score of 32 under par over his last 3 majors. That's better than any other player in the world. That Masters win was no fluke. It was the continuation of outstanding play.
We thought we'd never see it, and I don't believe he thought either.
In the last 12 months, Tiger has 3 straight top 10s in majors, a breakthrough win at the Tour Championship, and of course, a career redefining win at the Masters.
The return to glory.
He's now 6th in the official world golf ranking, so he heads to Bethpage with his highest world ranking entering a major since the 2013 PGA when he was number 1. And finally, that's right, he has won on this golf course before. All in all, we should be able to count on Tiger being relevant at the minimum, with a chance of a roar for sure Sunday afternoon. He is back, ladies and gentlemen. Tiger Woods 8-1 to win the PGA, tied with Koepka for best in the field. It's the first time Tiger Woods has been favored entering a major championship since 2013. We will keep you posted on his progress all morning long. Meanwhile, coming up, the Pelicans have the #1 pick in the draft. But Zion has more options than you may think. One may surprise you. We will explain. And Odell Beckham, a no-show yesterday at Browns camp. Some curious reactions from his quarterback and his coach as we continue. Get Up on ESPN.